Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
So before we get going, Rylan, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
So, my name's Rylan Whalen. I was born in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. I am a singer, songwriter, and the co-founder of Harmonies.
That's awesome. And Rylan, what do you love about Canada?
I mean, I think it's the fact that it's just so multicultural, and that, to be Canadian, it's not really to be a certain color. It's not to be a certain race. It's kind of like a way of life, I suppose. I'd like to think that most Canadians are pretty accepting to, other nations and other people or other religions. And growing up, I just, every country has racism or like prejudiceness, but for the most part, growing up, there was a lot of acceptance for everyone around me, and everyone should get fair opportunities and the same treatment regardless of where they're from, who they are. And, I don't know. I think that's how I see being Canadian. It's just we're friendly people.
Well, and you kind of embodied that in your own life and lived out that journey with your friend Danny. Do you want to just share from your perspective what it was like first meeting him, how this bond was created that kind of transcended geography and space time, and now here you are back in Canada?
Yeah. So, I was actually, I was friends with Alex, the drummer of our band, first before I met Danny, and they went to school together. And I knew Alex from like a neighborhood friend of mine. It was kind of a weird chance that we all met, but Danny and Alex were already playing together. They had this this post-hardcore band. It was like they're playing like metal, and they had another friend of ours who was screaming. He was doing like the rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, right.
And at that point, I was taking singing lessons, and I was kind of messing around on an acoustic guitar and just writing my own stuff. And I was hanging out with Alex at the same time, and they were looking for a clean singer, someone who didn't scream. And Alex recommended me, so I came down to a rehearsal one day when they were jamming, and they're just like, "Oh, just sing something over this spot where there's no screaming." And I did. And I don't even know if it was very good, but that's how we kind of started jamming. And we were in a band like that for about a year. I think we were like 14 years old, and it kind of dissipated. But at that point, me and Danny we started writing acoustic songs together. He was playing some stuff to me, and I would sing some softer stuff without the screaming. And yes, from that band, Harmonies kind of developed. And then it, excuse me, it gosh, we would just play in little venues and at the YMCA and stuff like that. We were really young, and then it progressed into a whole other story once Danny left. But yeah.
What was it about that relationship, that friendship that you built that like stood the test of distance? What would you credit that to?
To this day, I don't know exactly like why we built a friendship so quickly and why it's still as strong as it is. I can only say, intuition. We knew we had a certain connection, even though we were from different places. And, he was I'm still pretty like shy and reserved. I've overcome a lot of those things, but naturally I'm more of like an introvert, and he's much more of an extrovert. So when I met him, it was kind of like he brought something out more in me, and really pushed me to sing louder and be proud of your voice, those kind of things. And we just complimented each other. We're really similar, but on
got some yin and yang going on there too.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I like that. It's funny, actually. I've often heard it said that if like an introvert and an extrovert truly bond in a deep level of friendship, it's actually one of the greatest synergies you can have, because they appreciate the difference in each other so much.
I truly believe that too. We yeah, I think we complement each other definitely.
Yeah.
And,
so tell us about your music.
I don't know. It's kind of like this magical thing. I really don't know why.
Well, that's a good answer. So tell us about your music. What is it? You've fallen in love with music. You've had this band for so long. This band has survived. So many bands don't survive. What is it about your love for the music, Danny's love for the music, what you guys are creating that you love so much?
I guess, it's a lot of it, is the bands before us were influenced by and the people, I think we wanted to play rock and roll, and we wanted to write songs that would influence, and, the younger generation below us too. We're just kind of passing on that torch. But
if you were just to describe to someone, what is it about your music that you feel is like, for example, Zach and I often talk about this podcast, right? And we're like, what we love about making this podcast is hearing what makes other people tick. Little truths that they've discovered about life that perhaps like we definitely haven't, because that's the beauty of diversity, like you said at the very beginning, right? Is the beauty of our nation, the beauty of what we're even doing here is we're cross-pollinating lives by telling each other our stories. And by doing that, we actually enrich everyone's life, right? So like, what is it about your music that you love so much that you keep... It's work to create music. It's like you're pouring your soul onto the page, into the chords.
I think that's always been a part of the music and the lyrics too, is that I think a part that makes us special is that, yeah, me and Danny are both very different people, and we're not really destined to be together. There were so many forces kind of trying to bring us apart, whether it was like countries or borders or governments or school or whatever. It was hard to stay together. And I think in the music, there's a lot of that honesty about how it's hard, but you got to stay strong in it too. And I think I love that. Go into that more. Like what about it being hard even maybe makes it worth it? Well, I think that's like anything. If you don't really appreciate the end goal if you don't go through some trials or some struggles, and yeah, it wouldn't be as interesting, if it wasn't hard.
True. Very true.
But I think the music's it's just very. A lot of our earlier stuff was just very brutally honest about distance and how it's hard to stay together, but very honest, loving lyrics too. That we had nothing to really hide. We put it all on the page, and where maybe a lot of bands growing up in Ontario didn't really have that same struggle. They were maybe brothers, or maybe they went to the same school, lived on the same street. It wasn't really that way. We were jamming together for a couple of years, and then he had to leave, and we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? But yeah, it's just but that's what makes it special, really. And that's what we joke about the name Harmonies. It's like you got to go through the shit to get to the good stuff.
It's the smartest. It's maybe the smartest band name I've ever heard.
Yeah, I gotta say it is just like high level.
It's funny when it's funny when you tell people the name and they don't really get it, and then they read it out. They're like, "Oh, no. Right, that's cool."
Well, it is one of those things that you kind of have to read to be like, "Oh, I get the play on words."
Or you can hear it, but it doesn't quite come off as well as when you like see it. You're like,
if you say it quick, it just sounds like the word.
Exactly.
But that's
so. How old were you when Danny had to move back down south?
I would have been. I think I was 17. I think Danny was 16 and I was 17 because I'm a few months older than him. We might have both been around 16.
Right. And so describe to us what that part of the journey was like. So now Danny's gone, you're still in Canada, and you guys still want to work together. What was that like? How did you overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, I mean, it was really strange when he told me he was leaving, because I didn't really think that was like a possible thing. We'd only been playing music for about like 2 years at that time, but our friendship had grown strong, and we were just really excited about the future. Like we thought we had all the time in the world to go through high school and make a band and like just do whatever. And then, so yeah, that bomb kind of dropped, and it was weird. I didn't actually see him for like the 2 months before he left, because I don't know. I think he was seeing other friends too, and he was going through some other stuff. But I made sure I saw him the night before he left, and we had a little goodbye, and we kind of just, we didn't know what was going to happen, but we did promise each other we were gonna try to make it work, and yeah, we'd see each other again, essentially. And it was really sad, and we were unsure if that would happen, but we would pretty much just Skype every night and continue to write songs. Like I would be writing songs on my own, and then we'd meet up at night, and I'd show him some stuff and he'd show me some stuff, and we just kind of still planned our future. And we were writing an album together. We were just trying to figure it out with the distance. And we did that for at least the better part of a year. And then it was during the summer break going into grade 12, I decided I would go visit him for like 2 months. So I worked a shitty, like cleaning dishes job, made enough money for a plane ticket. And then I went down there for 2 months, and we decided to like record all the music we had worked on over the year of Skyping and stuff. And, we did. We recorded an album, and I kind of got to know the country a little bit. And that's a whole other story. Maybe Danny talked about how our studio burnt down.
That was what I wanted to hear about that from your perspective. Like, so you've gone to some foreign country, lived with your buddy for 2 months, had this adventure, built this project. You know, you're probably quite proud of it, happy to have something in your hands, and then it's gone. What's that like?
Yeah. Well, it was. I mean, it was just like I've never been in a fire like that. It was just kind of a harsh reality of like how fast things can burn down and you can lose everything. And that's more than anything, I was just happy to be alive. Like,
right. Yeah.
And I made sure I grabbed my guitar and I ran out, but I forgot my shoes. So my shoes were lost. I think I lost the sweater. I think I left my sweater upstairs too, but you know,
but you got your guitar. Yeah. That's what really matters.
What was really frustrating is, we'd spent like 2 weeks working on about 2 weeks to a month working on that album. And it was, I think like a couple days before that, I finally got all my singing tracks done, and I had like 5 days left before I had to go back to Canada. So we're like, we did it. We got this all done. And then that happens. But yeah, I like in the end, it all worked out because we went to another studio the next couple of days, and I sang like very quickly and did as much as I could with the time we had. But it was a learning experience. But I remember that night, once we came back home from the fire and I had like no shoes, we were like, well, should we go to the club? Still gonna have a good time.
What else are you gonna do? Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good line to introduce ourselves to people. We're like, we were just in a fire.
All right, yeah, our house just burned down.
Yeah.
So is that record available online? Is it up?
You know, I think it's on like a private Bandcamp link.
Right. I would love to hear it because there's so much there's so much story
and story around it.
We can dig it up for you. There's actually 2 albums that are on private. But yeah, that first record was called Miles Away.
Yeah.
And it was, there was you could see a lot of potential in our songwriting and where we were going, but it's a pretty loose amateur album, but there's some nice qualities to it. We can check it out one day and listen to some songs, I'm sure.
What's it like to watch you as an artist, to watch your music evolve? So you have that, which was made in this intense time, yet all this emotion that you put into it. Now you're like, well, it's a little loose. Walk the listeners through like how you feel like you've evolved as an artist.
I guess you just have more confidence in yourself and the things you say, I suppose. Like I look back on certain songs I wrote about love, and you think at the time when you're young and you know a lot about certain things about life, and then a few years go on, you're like, oh, I was pretty stupid. I didn't really know anything about love.
Yeah. So,
it's kind of like that. I look back on a lot of those songs where I'm singing about these kind of heavier themes, but I'm like, man, you didn't really know what like heaviness was.
Right.
So I feel like you kind of grow into emotionally, you kind of grow into those old lyrics. Sometimes you'll look back on them and you can say, oh, and now I've experienced those things. But you just, there's people walking in. More than anything, you gain confidence with yourself. And and I guess you just explore different avenues and learn what doesn't work and what does. I can't really say, what it is to be an artist or how to grow exactly. You just kind of go with it and
you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, essentially you got to keep that certain aspect of yourself that made you start writing music in the first place.
Can you give us an example of a specific lyric that you wrote about love that now you look at it and you're like, oh, I didn't really know what I was talking about there?
Let me think about it. Yeah, some of the earlier songs that I was like, there's one song was like when I saw her, the world stopped with me. Kind of these generic like lines, and like, oh, I'd do anything for, like, I would, I'd walk a certain distance. I'd jump off a cliff for you.
Right.
I do these things that are, they're just not true at all. But as you, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. As you grow, it's like your lines about love can be much more transparent and realistic about how it's not as easy as saying I jump off a cliff. It's
not doing these grandiose
it's much more
things.
Complicated than that sometimes.
Well, I think it's interesting that you're singing about that when you at least, and I think Zach would agree, shown Zach and I a real brotherly love with someone, right? You've tested that, and you have a deep understanding, in a lot of ways, probably deeper than a lot of people, of what brotherly love actually is, right? Of like caring about your bro and being like, no, like we're in this together, and I don't really care what stands in our way. Like, friendship's what's important. And so, do you think that learning about that kind of love has helped you in your lyrics, in your artistic? Because I have this theory of art that so much of what an artist is doing is simply distilling emotion into lyrics and sound to such a point that it will actually just get under the rationality of a person and into their hearts, right? And so like, what, I always wonder what kind of emotional journeys, and I love yours and Danny's story, because that is an emotional journey that not a lot of people can say they've been on, and yet you've taken that and made it into art that everyone can kind of attach themselves to and feel a sense of belonging in.
Yeah, I've always felt like, at least for me, songwriting is pretty like therapeutic. A lot of times it's not, you're not always writing about happy feelings. You could write about some pretty messed up stuff or just stuff that's really bringing you down. But I really believe that taking those complicated and negative emotions and then putting them into like a beautiful song or something that other people can conceive and you can look at as more of like a productive thing, not something that weighed you down and just hurt you and you did nothing with. You can be inspired by all your situations, but I think that's another reason I try to write honestly, and I don't try to hold back on the things I say, because there is someone out there feeling certain things like that too, and if they can connect with that and feel good about not feeling alone with those feelings, that ultimately is a positive thing too. It's kind of morbid that they like these are sad songs or something. They're hard things, but they connect you with people. They bring you together. They show you're not so different from everyone else. And
it's interesting because both there's a couple of things you mentioned. The first that I want to get into, you've mentioned this a couple of times, is you try to be honest with your lyrics. I think that a lot of the times now people just write the lyrics they think will fit into what will make them popular. What makes you decide to go the route of honesty and not just, prepackaged emotions and into these authentic, maybe more messy emotions?
Well, I think ultimately that's just with my, I feel uncomfortable singing things that aren't necessarily true. Or I don't think that's the thing. I don't think me and Danny have ever went on a certain path because, everyone else was doing it or it was the obvious choice. We kind of have always taken the road less traveled. But yeah, I don't like bullshitting people. I don't like bullshitting myself either. I feel like if you truly believe the words you're singing you'll sing them with even more power. And I you know, you don't want to be in anything in life. You don't really always want to be doing something you don't like or you don't believe in. I mean, that shouldn't be anything you do in life.
and yet so many people spend most of their lives doing things that they don't like or believe.
Well, of course,
right?
and that's of course you got to make a sacrifice to like make people happy sometimes, and it can't always be, you know, your way or how you want it to be, but you know, it's give and take. I do believe that you don't always get to say exactly what you want sometimes, but that's what I just think you should strive for authenticity. And
so I wanted to ask you a question. Something you mentioned earlier. So you were saying when Danny first moved down, you guys started writing songs over Skype. That's got to be probably 10 years ago. Today we are so like online and connected, and something like that is like becoming at least a new norm. Back then, no one was doing that. So whose idea was it? Who came up with it?
It's literally
speak to that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
We they didn't. I don't even know if anyone uses Skype anymore, but it's all like Facebook Messenger or Zoom. But I think that was that's all we really had. We were like talking on Facebook, and then we would Skype just because he'd have to show me like literal guitar chords, and we weren't always writing music either. Sometimes we were like smoking pot.
Right. Of course.
Sometimes it was bad. I was like up to like 3 a.m. because the hour difference was like, it was earlier there. So I was like 3 a.m. for me, and it was only like 1 o'clock, and my mom would come down. She's, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm writing music. I was like, pot.
Yeah, write music.
It's a school night. All that. But no, it worked out. But it was hard, you know, like we got kind of sick of doing it like that. So eventually, I had to go not move down there, but I visited him like that first time. And then I think 2 other times after that. And then I officially moved there when I was 19 after.
So you're 19 years old after high school, and you moved to Argentina. Walk us through that.
I mean,
Canadian,
yeah, of course, it's like
had you lived anywhere else? No, just probably Burlington that whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, Burlington. I traveled to like the States for like vacations and to the other side of Canada, but that's it. So it was kind of. It was good that I visited a few times, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. But that's the thing. You're young and you're naive. And I was excited. I was like, yeah, this is great. You know, no parents, rock and roll. But then quickly you realize like, oh, I miss my mom. I miss having food. I miss her doing my laundry. So that was a quick wake up call. And it's like, so a lot of my friends, you know, they were going off to college and like, oh, I'm so far. It's like, you don't know your mom on the weekend and like have a good time. I'm 9,000 kilometers away.
Yeah.
So I didn't go back to Canada for like 2 years. So that was kind of hard on my family and me. But you know, I learned how to survive and I learned how to fend for myself. But
so tell us about that. Like 19 years old. I mean, I moved out around the same time, but I went to university, so it doesn't really count. Like you said, you're moving out and you're just rock and roll in freaking a foreign country where you don't even speak the language.
Yeah, I still don't speak the language that well. I speak enough to get by and you know, get around safely. But yeah, it was tough because. Yeah, you learn quickly that it's not so easy getting by as an adult, especially in like a foreign country. And we didn't really have that much money. And at the time it was only me and Danny. So we still had to like find a band.
Right.
So
right.
We were busking a lot and we were playing open mics, and that was about it. And then so we started like meeting people at these open mic nights, and slowly met, you know, a drummer and, another guitar player, and asked if they wanted to join in. And you know, it evolved from open mics and playing street corners to shitty bars and shitty clubs and so forth. But we did that for the better part of like 4 years and had a few different lineup changes. And recorded 2 albums. Yeah, it was a whole thing. But
so walk us through the busking. Like, what's going through your head when you're sitting there busking? Is it just like, we're gonna make this? Like, we're just gonna make music and we love it, or is it like, this is the grind and like, I don't enjoy this at all?
It was, yeah. Sometimes it sucked. It was hot, and you'd be in subway cars in the summer, and sometimes there'd be people that are really attentive and like, oh, this is cool. They're playing music. I'd usually have like a ukulele, and Danny would have a guitar, and we just scream and sing, and because it's pretty loud on there.
Right,
so most of the time, people were like, shut up,
right,
stop singing next to me. And also, there's a ton of poverty down there. So there's a lot of like street performers and then just panhandlers like asking for money. Yeah. And so there'd be people like on the train who actually needed the money maybe more than us. And they'd be like, get off. This is my this is my train.
Right,
get off.
Right.
So it's pretty it could be pretty cutthroat out there. But usually there'd be a few people that would stop and be like, oh, you guys are great. And then we'd give them a card and then they'd come to our show.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
We actually met a lot of like friends that we still have in that way. We met our keyboard player on the subway actually.
Oh wow,
our old keyboard player.
Right.
We're still on good terms, but he's got a kid now and a wife. He still lives in Argentina.
Right.
But yeah, we would just make enough money to go home and eat and buy like a beer, and we do that. Yeah, a few times a week at least.
So is that the only thing that you guys did for work, or did you guys hold down other jobs?
That was it. I think before I moved down there, Danny was doing some like delivery job. Actually, no, then Danny started working this job promoting a club, and then I got a job there like DJing for a bit. So that was probably my only like formal job. It was mostly busking.
So for 4 years, I love this. This is like, how amazing is this story? Canadian boy from Burlington goes down for 4 years, busks his way to relative stardom.
Yeah, well, it got to. I mean, we did that. We would busk like every once in a while. It's like till pretty recently, but we could stop doing it like once we started getting bigger shows and bigger venues. But still, we weren't making that much, it's enough to get by for a few days. So yeah, we were always kind of grinding and hustling.
Yeah,
God bless my parents. They sent me a lot of money. I'm still paying back.
Oh yeah.
The real MVPs.
Good. That's good. So what did they think? What's their perspective on you just going off?
I think, in the early years, my mom was very worried, and my dad was more like, yeah, the music's great, but why don't you work a trade job, something reliable you can fall back on?
Right.
And he said that for years and years. And it's only until now that we're back and we're kind of, I don't know, we're a bit more well off and we can pay our bills now. And I'm not getting money from them anymore.
Right.
So now that, they see how hard we've worked and the dedication, but yeah, they were very worried. I mean, who wouldn't be if your teenage son's just moving off to a foreign country and you're not going to see him for 2 years.
Yeah, and he's just busking. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. No, man, I didn't. There was like weeks where I didn't talk to her for weeks, but I'm glad she didn't see like all the hard times.
Right.
But we got like, we met a lot of great people, and I made a lot of good friends that did speak Spanish, like English, and would, help me with my Spanish and yeah, those are the kind of people that helped me out and got me through those times. A lot of good friends and a lot of people I still hold dear to me.
And that would have an impact on your music, right? Because like your music is straight from the ground. You know what I mean? This is something that you've been working on trying to master for 4 years, basically, and doing nothing else for those 4 years, right? Or basically doing nothing else since you met Danny. Like, this has been your life. What do you think? Like, that's not how most people get good at music. What do you think that brings to your music?
I think it's just a different way. I like our content's just a bit different. It's like if you look at a band that was just brought up in Ontario. They're going to sound a bit more like a band from Ontario. We just had some like outside influences in Argentina. You know, we always call it the spice, the kind of like Latin flair.
Yep.
So I think our band naturally has that, but I don't know. It's just I guess I see myself as kind of this traveler and poet. You know, I don't necessarily, I haven't stayed in one place in a long time. So I kind of just write what I see, and I've experienced a lot of things, and I know there's way more to experience too. It's like the world's just massive. So
yeah.
And there's just so many people and just so many relationships you can build. And that's, as the more you see is the less, you know, really you realize how much how much more there is to experience. Yeah, I don't know. I just think our maybe our music and our lyrics are a little less, superficial about like the things going on necessarily like in one scene, or it's more about like this altruism kind of worldly vibe and outlook. I don't know exactly.
That's really, really cool, man. I did want to touch on one thing. I was reading your bio, and you mentioned in your bio, you said you were disenchanted by modern music. And so you went into the past.
Let's get into this.
Yeah.
Let's get into this.
So why?
Yeah.
And what do you find, you mentioned, you know, the 50s, 60s, 70s. What do you find in that era of music that isn't represented in today's music?
I do think there are people writing music like that still, but in the forefront of music is not really that. And I'll address on that point first before I get in why I like the 60s and 70s. The things that are important to some people that are in these songs, these lyrics, that the people around me when I was in high school or my peers, I just don't believe in the things these people say all the time. And that sounds generalized. I'm maybe like, there's good music in every genre, but there's just an influx of people writing music, and it's pretty much just like, I'm better than you, look what I have. And I just don't like, I just don't think that's how you like live life, or that's how you treat people naturally. And it's just this big glam thing and a lot of ego. And I don't love it. I can't really relate to it. I don't know. I've always gravitated towards music from the 60s and the 70s because it was more introspective. There was more love. I think there was more acceptance, and it wasn't as aggressive maybe. And I guess I just grew up on that stuff ultimately. So maybe, you know, if I grew up around a different household and there was more hip hop or rap or just more modern music, I might have a different outlook on that. But yeah, my mom and my dad were just always playing like the Eagles or the Beatles or Supertramp or stuff like that. And like I said, there are great bands in every decade and in every genre. But yeah, I don't love the way I don't love the top 40.
Well, there's a lot of very superficial thematic content in top 40 music that is just incredibly shallow and surface level.
It is, and it's just kind of, once you've heard a song like that, you've kind of heard them all. It's like it's not a lasting feeling, and it's not always a human feeling either. These songs, I don't know.
There's almost a roboticism to it, right? There's like,
and they're trying to sell something, and it's just a whole. I get it. I understand it, but I don't at the same time, and I've never seen my art that way. I've never.
I think it is a symptom of a society that is obsessed with instant gratification. It's, you know, the 2-minute and 45-second like dopamine hit where it's just like, it's cookie cutter packaged and there to do a very specific short-term thing. And I think the deeper art that you talk about takes longer to consume, and that's why.
But it's what makes it timeless too, I think.
Yeah, and I wonder about modern music and how timeless the stuff that we hear in the top 40 will be. Like, will those artists and bands stand the test of time, or will they just be thrown away in the next, 15, 20 years? Do you have anything to say about that? Like any speculation?
I'm sure a lot of them won't be remembered as they are. Their songs will be forgotten, but I'm sure, like any good artist, they evolve and they try to find what works and they try to stay fresh. So I don't know. A lot of these are like, I really couldn't say,
If you had to paint like a picture of what you want music to become, because we are controllers we control our own destiny. Look at what Danny did, right? He's like, I'm going back to Canada, and and now he's back in Canada. What if you had to have your say? What do you want this next season or whatever of music to be for the world?
I just want more rock and roll, I guess. And I think I think there's a lot more rock bands, and I think I'd like to hope that certain kind of genres of rock, whether it be straight up like rock and roll, whether it be punk rock, there's more bands coming out and getting the limelight. So that gives me some confidence that there's a market for us still. Ultimately, I don't think, and I don't know if things will change. I think with the way technology is going, and as you say, that instant gratification, there's always going to be those songs and those top 40 hits that, maybe they're huge for a few months and then they're just another song you shelve. I guess I just aim to write music that can be listened to in any decade or at any time, hopefully, and that I can feel proud about 10 years from now or 20 or, even tomorrow.
I do feel like we have, and this is pure speculation, but I feel like we've pushed the envelope of what we're doing in top 40 in my mind, as far as it can go. And the example I like to use is the Billie Eilish record that won all of those Grammys. It's two people in a bedroom making a record, won a whole bunch of Grammys. Like that kind of encapsulates this like isolation, like one person with a computer, and I feel like, okay, we've exhausted that now. And it's not just going to fall off the face of the earth and go away, but I like to believe that the soft spot in the market that people are going to, yearn for again is bands like yours, where it's a group of people in a room making music and synergizing together and diving a little bit deeper into harder to consume thematical content within the art, and just like break past that surface level. So I could be wrong, I could be right. I hope I'm right, but
I hope you're right too.
No, I would think so. I think after COVID allows us to go out and do these things again, I think people actually crave that connection with people. And I think there's going to be a purge of that because we haven't had it.
Yeah, I think there's going to be kind of a renaissance of live music too. People are going to be wanting to, like, live shows are going to sell out like nuts.
Yeah, hopefully that, it brings people together and it doesn't start a whole other fourth wave or some bullshit. But
yeah, that would suck.
It would. Well, Rylan, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really quickly, if you just want to plug your band and your, social media and all of that for the listeners, where can people find you?
You can find us on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. We do have Twitter, and it's just Harmondies, one word, on all those platforms. And check us out on Spotify and YouTube as well.
There you go. Thanks so much for joining us.
Is there a particular song you really want people to listen to right now?
That we wrote?
Yeah.
Go check out Nothing More Than Love.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
Nothing More Than Love.
There we go.
Well, Rylan, thank you again. We appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing new music from you soon.
Well, and hopefully, when all this is done, maybe we'll all go for a beer.
I would love one. Well, I have one.
Well, yeah.
I'd love to have one with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Rylan. Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.